Hey everybody, Jenny Fergus here. I'm starting a new large painting today that I wanted to share with you. And it's a completely different painting, completely different experience from the small Virginia farmhouse I demonstrated for you last time and shared over a series of 7 videos called Beauty in Imperfection. This series will be another demo of a complete painting, but it will be very different because I'm working, as you can see, on a full sheet of paper here. It's Arches 140-pound cold pressed, which I like the best because of the surface and the way it receives the paint. So highly recommend that. And it's also bright white, which is something I've started using. I've always liked really white paper, and they've come out with the bright white. So again, that's what this is. I've got more brushes this time as well, and some larger brushes I'm sure I'll be using to do this painting. Here's the photograph, the reference photo. Bring it into your view. I took this photo myself. This is I work from either from life, from memory, or from my own photographs. So this painting will be a combination of memory and from my own photos. So this is the main photo for color and for basically composition. Although I have a lot of other reference photos for the palmettos, like here. I've got some closer up photos I'll look at. And I have this photo as well I wanted to show you. This is a different photo. I printed it in sepia simply because the color in my photo is not good. I love the shape of this tree, the curves of the branches and how it arches over the whole composition. It's a little bit different from this one, so I'm going to combine the elements from both of these photos in the painting. They're both from the same scene, the same place, just from a different point of view. So as I said, it's a very large painting, a full sheet watercolor. These images, I've printed them for myself in a larger size just to give myself a closer point of view to the size of the painting. These are not as big as the painting, but very different than working from a little 4x6 photo. I do have extra reference photos in my iPad or my iPhone I may use from time to time, but these two will be my basic sources. And as you can see, this is a challenging part of this painting is it's all foliage. It's another commission. My client did not want any architecture in it. This is a special spot for her and for her husband, and it's in on their land, and they wanted just the foliage. So that's always a challenge because it's a lot of very organic and nebulous shapes and a lot of nuances in green and other natural colors that are neutrals and so forth. One thing I really liked about the scene was all this beautiful kind of lavender blooming grass. Then I loved the spiky palmetto next to that fuzzy grass. So there's some different shades of green that are in the photo. I'll of course enhance all that myself, use artistic license for that. Love the lavenderish color that peeks through in the trunks of the trees. So again, I will take liberties with all of that. So I'm going to get started. Oh, I was going to show you I've got bigger brushes. Got this big flat Isabee squirrel brush. I don't know if I'll use it or not, but I might. I've got some just larger rounds and of course some smalls. So I'll see what I need, in the painting. I've already prepared my palette, put extra paint in, got everything ready, so I'm going to get started, and I hope you will enjoy following along. I will be posting this video along with all my other ones on my YouTube channel. I found that is the best place to post the complete videos, and you just go to YouTube and search Virginia Fergus, Fergus. My channel will pop up and you'll see all my videos, and you can watch them at your leisure. And you can watch them over and over, and you can leave me comments or questions there on YouTube if you like, and I'll do my best to reply and answer. So, okay, here we go. I hope you can see. All right. Now, as you know from maybe watching me before, I don't do any drawing, or rarely do drawing. Sometimes I'll choose to do a painting with drawing, but again, this one I'm going to paint directly on the white paper with no drawing. And so the first shapes, the first angles and shapes, the placement, the proportion is really, really crucial, because it determines everything else about the painting. So I'm going to start, have both my photos laid out here, and I'm going to start here. I'm going to be placing this big tree, at least where the trunk comes out. I may move it down a little bit, more in the position of this one. I haven't decided yet. I don't make those choices necessarily ahead of time. So, and I may not be talking as much as I get started. So I hope you'll just enjoy watching and looking. I'll talk some, as much as possible. All right, I'm going to use this big brush. It's a number 12 SB, and it's a really beautiful brush. I got it at Sennelier in Paris, so that brings a lot of good memories to me, where a lot of the Impressionists shop for their paint and brushes. Alright, it's a sable brush. Now, to start on the tree trunks, I see a lot of lavender, which I really, really like. So I'm going to use some of my cobalt violet here. One of my very favorite colors. I think it's a beautiful color on its own. It's also a great mixer, although you do have to be a little careful with it. It can be sort of murky, and you don't want to overuse it. But I'm going to use some of it to get started here. And I think I'll touch some cobalt blue into it. This is definitely going to make it into a lavender, a true purple, I guess you could say. And I want to tone that down, touch a little bit of my quinacridone gold into it, grade it down right away. I'm going to start with this. This is very pale. The trees will be much darker than this, the trunks, when I finish with the painting, but just to get going, I'm going to make them pale for now. Alright, let me think about this a minute. Now, this big trunk, it arcs over this way. I do like that. And this tree, which you can't see, but it is peeking underneath right here and comes across. I do a lot of prep drawing, I guess you could say, just with my finger. I think about where things will be placed, about how big they'll be, and where they'll intersect as they go off the edges of the paper. So I do some preliminary sort of musing about that and pondering it. I still think I like that really curvy tree. I'm going to use that one. Okay. As you can see, painting a large painting, you've got to have a lot more paint and a lot more water. Does not go as far as, of course, you've got a little bitty painting going. The other thing that's nice about painting big, though, is you can stand, you can use your whole arm. It can be a lot freer. I like the way that curves down. I'm going to get that right. Now, as I see other colors that would look beautiful in the tree trunk, I may add some of them in as it's wet, but I may go back in later, certainly will go back in later, and add more. I'm going to put some kind of mossy green color down in here as it comes up, curves back. Now on the tree there are some ferns growing, and they're very light. I can see that in the sepia picture I made. So I'm going to mix some of my Quin Gold with some of my green gold. I'm going to touch this where it's wet. Where I see some of these growing. And where this is still wet. Now these are more in the sun right up here. I'm going to go up into the light. Now, so much of painting is learning to trust yourself and saying, okay, I like that. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to accept what it did. I know I can make that work in the painting. And it's interesting to take advantage of things while they're wet to see what kind of effects you can get for, even if it ends up being an underpainting, that you go back in and define and add to it. There's nothing like the mixing paint will do on its own, wet and wet. And some of these trees, the branches, are covered partially by foliage. So you don't want them to be just one big, long, solid line. You want to lift your brush, do some touch and go marks. Because a lot of this will be defined later with all kinds of other foliage and sky and leaves. And one thing that's pretty about this is that using a lot of lavender here and with the yellow, it really, those are complementary colors. So they're going to make each other vibrate when placed next to each other. And that looks really pretty. Okay. Drop in some more of this dark purple right on this edge of this limb to define it while it's still wet. Plus it's away from the light there. And you don't want a hard line, necessarily inside the tree trunk. So while it's still wet, it'll blend with what's the yellow above it there. Alright, I see a branch that I really overlooked here. I'm going to add that one in while I have a chance. These are all intertwining. It's pretty. Really making some, I guess you could say, calligraphy here. Some calligraphic marks that hopefully will be really pleasing in the painting. Add a little bit more green here. It's a little bit of it's that emerald green. I'm just going to touch some of this here while it's wet, like I said. See what happens. Okay. Alright, that's about what I'm going to do right now to that. So, the next thing I want to think about are some of this palmetto grass right here. Palmetto fronds. And they are a real true greenish yellow green and Kelly green, or a true greeny green. And as you know, in watercolor you got to go light to dark if you want to capture some of those pale green colors. I've got to remember too, I want to think about this fuzzy lavender grass, and then where the stream, there's a little stream important in the painting to my client going through here. So these palmettos are about right here. Going to go on and get some of those placed. And I'm looking at the direction of the leaves, or the fronds, I guess is a better word. And get some of those in place. Let some of this paint mix on the paper. There's some really darker ones back here going this way. Making kind of a fan as they do. On the edges of those are some yellow aspects. Okay, now there's some kind of a goldish, brownish green, where some of them look like they're sort of drying up a little bit. I'm going to put some of those down here. And here are these stalks. They're really coming down. And they actually have some dark purple in them. I'll add some of that now while I can. Just up in here, some of the stalks. And then there's some darker fronds. Now that's hookers and cobalt. I'm going to put a couple up here. I'm pulling the paint out the direction that the fronds grow and go. And reminder, to get gestural marks, you've got to use your whole, hand. You're not just using, you've got to use your whole arm, not just your hand. Put a couple back here just to break this up just a little bit. Okay. Now, I'm going to work on this lavenderish, goldenish pampas grass. I guess that's what it is, blooming grass. It's very bright and pale. I'm going to use a bigger brush. Let's see. This is a number 12 too, but it's, for some reason, it's a whole lot bigger than the other one, even though they're numbered the same. It's also a sable brush. Now I am going to, let's see, wipe up some of that paint so I have a clear place down here for some of the lighter kind of golden undertones of the grass. So let's get some, I'm going to use some of this beautiful Naples yellow. It's very creamy. It's got kind of a warm, creamy quality. It's a good mixer, and it's a good underpainting color. It kind of glows the color itself, and it's not harsh like a lemon yellow or a cadmium. Alright, I'm going to drop some of this, just sort of almost scumble some of this in back here. It's too wet to really scumble, but get some of it underneath some of these places where I see it. Let's see, kind of in here. There's really a bunch of that grass up here. Okay. Now, I'm also going to put a little bit over this on this other side, because that is it's not the same stuff, but it's some of the same color. I'm going to touch some of that in. Now, it's a little muted. Touched it with a little of the green, toned it down just to not as yellow. Okay. Now, here's some of this lavender. I see some of this lavender kind of down in here too. This is the creek. I'm going to use it a different direction, but I'm going to put some of that in, have some continuity in the painting color-wise. Can you hear that squirrel? He's chewing on my house. 25 years of chewing. We can't get rid of him or his grandchildren. Let's see. Okay, underneath, back over in here, I see some more of this, but later I can use this as an underpainting and paint around some stalky things I see, and they'll end up being sort of lavender. The background will be darker. A little bit down in here. Okay. A couple of dollops of it right here. A little bit more up here. Okay. Now while this is sort of wet up here, still this trunk, I'll add some more of this in here. Alright, that's all I'm going to do right now. I've got to think about it. I've got to look at it. Let it start drying. So, thank you very much. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.